Howdy do, fellas, and welcome to Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Since the Hunger Games have gained international fame, everybody knows the Mockingjay, which is nothing but a fictional family member of the very real nice little songbirds of the species Mockingbird that are Northern American natives. The novel is not, however, about ornithology, but about growing up in the everyday madness of a little town in Alabama in the 1930s. Today's main characters are Scout, whose real name is Jean Louise Finch, 6 to 8 years in the novel, rather fearless. Her brother Jem is a couple of years her elder, gets along surprisingly well with his little sister and addresses their father, as Scout does, by his Christian name, Atticus Finch, in 1935. This is telling something about Atticus's educational style, which his neighbors never cease to be upset about. Atticus is a lawyer. Calpurnia, or short Cal, is the Finch's housekeeper, the only woman in the house because Mum died 2 years after Scout was born. Dill is Scout and Jem's friend, who spends his summers with them. He doesn't live in town, but stays with his aunt during the holidays. Dill, by the way, is modeled after Truman Capote, a childhood friend of the author's. Bob Ewell is notoriously unemployed and drunk. He lives next to the town dump and behaves just like that. While Tom Robinson is one of Atticus's clients, his process is to become the pivotal point of the novel, and there's masses of other neighbors and relatives inspired by Lee's childhood memories. She grew up in Monroeville, Alabama, and off we go in 1933. "Say, who lives at the corner over there?" "That's Boo Radley. He once tried to kill his dad with a pair of scissors. And at night he runs around and eats little furry animals raw. I dare you to touch his house." "'Cause I will." And of course Jem does that. Scout starts school then and hates it from day one. She gets physical punishment because she can already read and explains the town to the new teacher, like that the Cunninghams are rather poor. "I don't want to go to school. I'm forbidden to read." "Look here, Scout. Try to see it from Miss Caroline's perspective. That's called empathy." "Okay." "And second, here's a deal. You go to school and we continue to read in the evenings in secret." One day on her way back from school, she passes by the Radleys and there's a hole in a tree there and she goes, "Wow! There's 2 chewing gums in there! Chewing gums!" Together with her brother, she discovers even more treasures there. Whoever put that stuff there? And when Dill's back for summer, their fascination for Boo Radley continues to grow, so much so that they play Boo Radley, like Boo Scissorhands and Furry Animal Massacre. "What's up here?" "Oh, nothing. Is this about the Radleys?" "Of course not." "Here, let's send a message to Boo Radley. We stick a piece of paper on a long pole." "Kids, you stop bothering that man, right?" Naturally, it's not enough to just tell the kids, and at the end of the summer, "Let's go for a walk in the middle of the night," which takes them into the Radleys' garden in order to get a glimpse inside the house when there's a shot and they have to flee and Jim has to leave his trousers behind because they get caught up in the fence and his daddy goes, "Where's your trousers, son?" We played strip poker." When he recovers them later that night, they have been mended and folded neatly, and a little later Jem and Scout find more treasures and go, "Let's write a letter and say thank you," and they have hardly deposited that letter when, "No, Mr. Nathan Radley, Boo's brother is closing that hole with concrete." And they never see mysterious Boo Radley, not even when in the winter Miss Maudie's house burns down and Boo places a blanket around Scout's shoulders. One evening, Scout asks her dad, "Atticus, do you defend niggers? Someone in school said so." His name is Tom Robinson. We don't say nigger, and I do defend him, even though some people think that wrong, because otherwise I couldn't look you in the eyes anymore. Then Christmas cometh, which traditionally they celebrate at Finch's Landing, the family plantation that is being ruled by Aunt Alexandra. Although the kids are quite happy because they are given air rifles, Scout now has to hang out with her nerdy little cousin Frances. And he goes, "Your daddy's a nigger lover." "What? Say that again." "Nigger lover!" And she beats him up, of course, for which she gets a hiding from her otherwise cool Uncle Jack. Afterwards, however, she goes, "But Frances said Atticus was a nigger lover and a disgrace for the family." And he goes, "Oh," and talks to his brother, who goes, "Well, why do otherwise reasonable people go stark raving mad when Negroes are involved?" And to his son Jem, he says, "Look here. I know you're going to shoot birds with that air rifle, although I wish you wouldn't. One thing, however, you are not going to do, and that is shoot a mockingbird, because that's a sin. They're harmless singers who don't do anything to anybody." And Scout thinks, why is it that our dad's so uncool? He doesn't go hunting, he doesn't have a rifle. One day, however, a mad dog comes down the street, and everybody has to stay indoors, cause it's dangerous to get bitten. Atticus arrives with a sheriff who hands him his rifle and goes, "Atticus, you shoot." "I haven't shot in 30 years. "But Daddy can't shoot." "I'm much worse than you." So Atticus takes the rifle, and although he loses and crushes his glasses, he just takes a short aim and bang, the dog's dead. They used to call him Old One Shot in his time. And the kids go, "Wow, he's such a good shot. Why'd he never tell us? He ought to be proud." And the only cool neighbor they got, Miss Maudie Atkinson, goes, "Because A reasonable man never is proud of his talents. Atticus is just such a gentleman, just as I. This, however, doesn't prevent Jem from wreaking havoc in the camellias of their stupid neighbor Mrs. Dubose. For this crime, he has to read her an hour every afternoon for a whole month. No! And for good measure, Aunt Alexandra arrives and will live with them for a while. Oh, this is especially awkward for Scout, who doesn't want to wear skirts and dresses and become a little lady that lives up to Auntie's high expectations of family tradition. One evening, a couple of men want to talk to Atticus in the yard, and he goes, "No, his process is on Monday, he will not be relocated, stays in prison here." And a little later he goes, "I have to go out again." And when the children are supposed to be in bed, they sneak out to look out for their dad, together with Dill, and find him in the town centre, in front of the prison, where he's put up a chair and hung up a lamp and is reading. When the children see him, 3 cars drive up, and a gang of country folks, a mob, come up, and they go, "Get out of the way, Mr. Finch." "No way I'll go away." They want to lynch Tom Robinson, whose process is on Monday. Scout doesn't understand the situation and runs towards her dad. "Hey, Atticus!" And he goes, "Jem, you take Scout and Dill home at once." But Jem goes, "No, I won't." And the situation is really tense when Scout suddenly goes, "Hey, Mr. Cunningham, you know me. I go to school with your son Walter. How's he? Would you say hi to him?" And all are flashed by Scout and look at her with open mouths until Cunningham goes, "Right, little Scout, I will tell him you said hi. Let's go, boys." And with this naive intervention, she probably saved Tom Robinson's life. Having achieved this, the children naturally also sneak into the courtroom to see the trial on Monday, which, of course, they are not allowed to do. The room is packed, so they only get to sit on the balcony with the black people. 1935, there was strict racial segregation. Downstairs, there's the jury, the judge, and the white people of Mockingbird. The first witness is the sheriff, who goes, "So, Bob here, Mr. Ewell, called me because a nigger had raped his daughter. I found her beaten up and she said it was Tom Robinson who I arrested." And Atticus then asks him, "Did you call a doctor?" "Nope." "And which of her eyes was blackened?" "Her right eye." Then it's Ewell's turn, and he's really disgusting and states that he caught Robinson red-handed. And again Atticus asks, "Did you call a doctor?" "Doctor? Ha! Too expensive." "And her right eye was blackened?" "Yep." "Can you write, Mr. Ewell?" "Course I can." "Would you please write down your name so the jury can see it?" "Phew, okay." And the judge, "So you're left-handed, Ewell." The main witness is the young woman who's supposed to have been raped, Mayella Ewell. "I just asked him to take apart a cupboard for me, and he went for me, choked me, beat me, and raped me." "And he beat your face?" "Yeah, but I can't remember. Why don't you believe me?" "This is the man who beat you. Stand up, Tom." And Tom gets up, and the crowd murmurs in surprise, "He's crippled. He doesn't have a left hand, really." This makes it highly unlikely that he blackened her right eye with this crippled hand. He could only have used his right hand and then hit her left eye. "This man has choked you with his right hand, released you, blackened your right eye with his right hand, and then raped you?" "Yeah." "Why don't you tell the truth? Your father beat you up, didn't he?" "I'll just say this nigger raped me, and if you don't believe me, you're a stinking bunch of cowards." Finally, it's Tom Robinson's time. "She harassed me, embraced me, and went, 'Kiss me, nigger.' I defend myself, and when Ewell looks into the window, he goes, 'I'll kill you, you whore!' Then I cleared out." "How so?" "If you were a nigger, Mr. Finch, you'd be afraid too." Dill gets sick in between, but when Atticus delivers his final speech to the jury, the children are in again, and he goes, "The Declaration of Independence says, all men are created equal. Now there's one place where this ought to hold true, namely a courtroom, so believe him in the name of God." Then the children are spotted and have to go home for dinner, but are back in time to see how the jury voted. They go, "Guilty, guilty, 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 12 times guilty." On their way home, Jem goes to his father, "But this isn't right, Atticus." And Atticus says, "No, Jem, this isn't right, but we'll appeal and he has a good chance." On the next morning, the entire black population of Maycomb has brought food presents to the Finch's house, which really touches Atticus. Scout now has to learn about the bigotry of her townsfolk during the missionary teas her aunt hosts. Atticus interrupts. Tom Robinson tried to run from a prison camp and was shot. He's dead. And also in school, she meets hypocrisy and says to Jem, "You know, our teacher criticizes Hitler for discriminating against the Jews, but after the trial, she was one of the first to bash blacks. Go away with that damn trial!" Jem wants to forget about that episode. One, however, who does not forget is Bob Ewell. He swears revenge to Atticus and makes trouble in town. Then there's Halloween. The kids are at a school event and return home in perfect darkness. Suddenly they are attacked. "Arr!" Jem goes down. Now Scout doesn't see anything because she's wearing a ham costume, which you have to imagine for the moment. There's a fight, and the next thing Scout sees is a man carrying Jem home while another man is lying on the ground. She hastens after Jem and goes, "Is he gonna die?" But her dad goes, "No, he just got his arm badly broken." In the corner, the man who carried him home stands, mute. Then the sheriff comes and goes, "Bobby Old's dead, lying there with a kitchen knife in his belly." And Atticus, Jem acted in self-defense." "This wasn't Jem. He fell into his knife." "I don't want this to be hushed up." "That's not for you to decide. If it hasn't been an accident, Boo here," and it's Boo Radley who saved him, "will never again be left alone, so it was an accident. Full stop." So for the first time, Scout meets her mysterious neighbor, Shy Boo Radley, and her dad goes, "You understand this, Scout?" And she replies, "I understand very well. It'd be like killing a mockingbird who hasn't done anything to anybody, just as Boo here." And the only time in the novel that he says anything is in the end when he goes, "Will you take me home?" Which is what Scout does, and thus the novel ends. What remains? How incredibly hard it is to get racism out of people's heads. That goes for the time in which the novel is set, 70 years after the end of the American Civil War. It goes for Europe today, 70 years after the end of the Second World War, and you may well ask why people still cling to notions as absurd as that. Also, how good and hard it is to raise your children to be free minds. And this, dear congregation, was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
Vielen Dank.